All right, today we're going to handicap the three major Kentucky Derby prep races for Saturday. We're going to start with the big one, the Grade 1 $1 million Santa Anita Derby. And this is the matchup that everyone's looking forward to. The freakishly talented Baffert colt Justify. They made him 4-5 on the morning line. He gets the acid test here against Bolt d'Oro, 6-5, second choice on the morning line. And I think the key to this race from a handicapping standpoint is what do the connections of Bolt d'Oro do? I mean, do they treat this as a prep race, or is he going to be, ridden kind of like he was last time in the San Felipe? Now, the San Felipe was his first start off the bench. You see, he had to break from the rail. And Bolt d'Oro is a horse that's had, problems with the break before. You see down here, off bit slow, wobbled start. So you kind of got to use him a little bit coming out of the gate. I thought he made a little, Javier Castellano, I thought, made a little bit of a touch over-aggressive move. Moved him a little early to take on McKenzie. May have been a premature move. It didn't matter because he won the race, after the stewards took care of it. But McKenzie and Bolt d'Oro hooked up about the 3/8 pole, and it was just like a prolonged shoulder-to-shoulder stretch duel, kind of a gut-wrenching duel through the lane. And McKenzie got to the wire first, but he was blamed for one of the two major incidents of contact, especially right down near the wire, that the stewards thought were decisive. Anyway, Bolt d'Oro's got the points he needs to get into the Kentucky Derby. I got to think that's the big long-range goal. It'd be really nice to win a race like the Santa Anita Derby. I don't know if they're going to, want to be willing to use him early again, hook Justify, have another, grueling, tough race. I really think Castellano's going to ride this race with the Kentucky Derby in mind. He's going to try to, get him to relax. If Justify's loose on the lead, so be it. I don't think he's going to move quite as prematurely. I think he's going to want him to finish with as much interest as possible. Have him going into the Kentucky Derby, a horse that, just finished strongly in the Santa Anita Derby and, was tractable in this race, didn't have a hard, gut-wrenching race. If he's good enough to get by Justify in the lane, while giving him the advantage, it's not impossible. I mean, like I said, this is an acid test for Justify. Bolt d'Oro may not be quite as talented, although he's very talented. But, Justify's got freakish potential, but he isn't proven from a class standpoint yet. So like I said, it's the acid test for Justify. But from a gambling standpoint, I think Justify wins this race wire to wire. And I'm pretty confident in that assessment because I just don't see the connections of Bolt d'Oro, really using him early and putting pressure on him. I mean, Bolt d'Oro might be the right horse in 4 weeks in the Kentucky Derby if the race goes as I envision it will go. But to me, I don't think it's, when you got a horse, as classy, as talented, and as well-bred as Bolt d'Oro, I don't really think the long-term view, I don't think you want to hook a horse like Justify early and have another gut-wrenching duel. Now, the connections, it might be interesting to see what they say in interviews, because if they say, if they say they're going to go out with Justify early, and they want to have another duel similar to what happened, in the Florida Derby with Strike Power and Promises Fulfilled, then, maybe a horse like Instilled Regard. I mean, Instilled Regard's clearly third best, but a distant third best in this race. But if the other two horses, want to go have a war from the start, which I don't even know if Bolt d'Oro is quick enough early. I mean, he'd probably have to be pushed and shoved and sent from the gate to hook Justify, heads up from the gate. But the only way anyone has a chance, I think, it might be Instilled Regard, and it would require the two freaks in the race to just, go out in an all-out war from the gate. So, I mean, in Stealth Regard, you see he was, he had a wide trip in what was kind of a merry-go-round race. Snapper Sinclair had the lead the whole way, was beat by Bravazzo on the line. Noble Indy was third with some traffic trouble. In Stealth Regard, if this race is run sensibly early and Justify's out there, with his ears pricked on an easy lead, and, Bolt D'Oro is using this race as a prep and just trying to finish as well as he can and get ready for the Kentucky Derby, I think you're going to have, Justify win, Bolt D'Oro second, and Stealth Regard third. Not an interesting race from a betting standpoint. I won't even be betting this race, to tell you the truth, but just because I don't see much value to it. But pay attention to what the connections of Bolt D'Oro say. If they say, they're going to treat this race like it's, just as important to them as any race, and they're going to ride very aggressively, they're going to try to press Justify. I mean, then, Justify might not be, a single if you're playing pick threes and pick fours, because, Bolt D'Oro puts pressure on him. A lot of different things can happen here early, and Bolt D'Oro might not even be quick enough to press him. So I expect Justify to go to the lead. Bolt D'Oro to be ridden like this race is a prep. You just want him to finish as good as possible. And boy, this would be an exciting race to watch anyway. But with that said, let's move on to races that are nowhere near as fascinating matchup-wise and race-wise, but that races that are better from a betting standpoint. And speaking of which, here is the Grade 2 $750,000 Wood Memorial. Fascinating thing about this race, you got 6-5 morning line on Enticed. He had a very disappointing return to the races in the Holy Bull, his 3-year-old debut in the Holy Bull. I didn't think he had any big excuse that day. He was beaten 14 lengths as the favorite in the race. That was sort of Audible's big come-out party. From there, he went back to New York, the one-turn mile in the Gotham, and they went fast early. You see plus 12 at the first call, plus 10 at the second call. It was a gut-wrenching pace, and it was the long shot old-time revival here with Jeremy Rose actually set the pace in 35-1, and looked like he might win for quite a ways, but he got tired very late. And Enticed went by in an effort that it wasn't to me. It was workmanlike. It wasn't a performance that you could knock, but I mean, it was not the kind of performance that would make me think the horse should come back at 6-5 morning line in the Wood Memorial. But this race didn't come up all too tough from a form standpoint. There are two horses in this race that are just extremely interesting horses. I mean, these are, you talk about how Justify might be training like better than any horse around. Well, Restoring Hope and Vino Rosso, they're both lightly raced horses from major barns. You got Pletcher and Baffert, and both of them have been training absolutely lights out. In the case of Restoring Hope here, you're talking about a horse who's a May foal, so he's he wasn't born till May, so he's still not even really a 3-year-old. And his form really isn't exposed. I mean, you see 3 maiden races, but he's been off since February 2nd. 8 workouts he's had since then. February 11th, February 17th, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And, his last 3 workouts have just been absolutely beyond sensational. In this March 19th work here, there was a $1 million yearling tap at Cola Baffert that was just, repeatedly put to the whip, as company of Restoring Hope. Restoring Hope's, exercise riders under like a double hammer lock, and it's just drawing off effortlessly from this Tappet Colt Baffert that's just being hard ridden and being ridden with the whip. And you see him come back after that March 25th. He has a bullet, 6 furlongs and 112-1. I mean, that is strong. Best of 24. And then, of course, April 2nd, you see 59-4, second best of 81 horses to work the distance that morning. Now, what's interesting about that work is that he was working heads up with Solomini. I'll show you that work now. And before we watch the workout, here are the past performances of Solomini. You see he won his debut first out at Del Mar. He was bet to even money, won with a big number. Come back in the Grade 1 front runner, was second in the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Crossed the wire first in the Grade 1 Los Alamitos Futurity over Mackenzie and Instilled Regard here. And then off the layoff, he was off, over 3 months. He come back, he was second at even money in the Rebel. So this is a pretty serious horse. He's been outworked a couple times by Restoring Hope, but we're going to watch the April 2nd one. And here is that work right now. You see Solomini, he's the chestnut on the outside. Restoring Hope's positioned in the inside here. You see Solomini's got the blinkers and the shadow roll. Restoring Hope is, his 2 works before this one were equally dazzling as this one. But, I mean, you got a horse who's running just 3 maiden races. He sure lacks class and, in terms of a race like the Wood Memorial. But one thing you can say with Baffert tests him in the morning. And you see here, Restoring Hope's going easy. Solomini's under pressure on the outside. The rider of Solomini's trying to, encourage him. Look how easy Restoring Hope's going. Restoring Hope, the rider's really motionless. And, I think you'd have to say the Restoring Hope, I mean, couldn't possibly have worked any better there. This horse has been off since February. He's had 8 workouts since the last race, a May foal. He should be developing. Baffert has a very good record chip into the Wood Memorial. He's 2 for 5. So that is Restoring Hope, Morning Glory, or potential, freak in the making. You could go a lot of ways there. One thing about Giants Causeway horses, they tend to need a few starts to develop. This horse has got upside potential. And Vino Rossi, the 9, he was the horse we showed last week. Here's Vino Rosso's work queued up with Audible. We were grasping at straws trying to beat Audible last week, and we were trying to beat him based on workouts. And, Vino Rosso, watch how easily he outworks Audible here. Now, Audible's not a particularly good workhorse, but, I mean, this was of his works. I shouldn't say that. I mean, Audible's had workouts that were very impressive. I mean, he sold for $500,000 at a 2-year-old sale after very impressive workouts. But some of his, I mean, it's a mixed bag with how he trained. And this is Vino Rosso on the outside here. You got Audible, of course, you come back and win the Florida Derby on the inside. And Vino Rosso is really just going easily. You can see the rider on Audible, asking him for a little more. And Vino Rosso just getting away from Audible. So, I mean, with Vino Rosso and Restoring Hope, you have 2 horses with real upside potential. You see Audible being hard ridden there to try to get to try to get on even terms with Vino Rosso, and then Vino Rosso kicking away again. Now, one thing I'll say about Vino Rosso on form, I mean, he's had to deal with just ridiculously slow-paced races. His first race at Aqueduct, you see -7 to the first call, -12 to the second call. Second race at Tampa, they went -23 to the first call, -18 to the second call. He still kicked clear in those races. A half and 50. I mean, that's crawling on the dirt at Tampa. In the Sam Davis, they went slow there, -7, -3. He kind of got shuffled back from second to fifth. Tried to rally on that day. It really wasn't able to. And then, the Tampa Bay Derby, which was, other than World of Trouble, was pretty close to a merry-go-round. They went -13 for the first call, -13 for the second call, 49-2. And, he didn't pass anyone that day, but he also, the three horses out in front had the tactical advantage. With Vino Rosso, you see he's by Curlin, out of a Street Cry mare. And Mythical Bride, she was by Street Cry out of Touch Gold, who was a Belmont Stakes winner. So, I mean, you just have a pedigree here that is just insanely stamina-oriented. The horse is obviously training very, very, very good. Might have a step forward. Might be a morning glory, but boy, Restoring Hope's working as good as any Baffert horse that's not named Justify. Vino Rosso, I mean, he is also another horse that trains like a really good horse. One of those two might be able to jump up, and they're worth opposing Justify with at 6-5. Justify is a pretty honest horse, but at 6-5, again, we might be grasping at straws and using a workout video to grasp at straws. But I just think you have to take a stand with one of these two horses here. The other interesting horse in the race that I'll talk about is Old Time Revival. He went +12 to the first call, +10 to the second call, head and head in the Gotham, and run a brave race to be second. He's got to go a little further this time. I just don't think anything's quick enough to hook him. I just, I can't play him in here. I mean, he is kind of your interesting speed horse. Maybe he'll, maybe if the track happens to be just right. A real cool thing about Old Time Revival, Congaree is a broodmare sire, and no horse loved a track any more than Congaree loved Aqueduct. I'll put up Congaree's form now real quick. Just take a look at his 4 Aqueduct races. You see here is the form of the Baffert-trained Congaree. He 4 for 4 at Aqueduct, made over $1 million. That's not the story, though. The story was just every time he'd run at Aqueduct, they were just like the most remarkable performances that you'll ever see. His first time was in the Wood Memorial, made his stakes debut in the Wood Memorial, and 147-4 was just dazzling time. He crushed Monarchos, richly blended, the third place finisher you see here. He came back to romp in the Withers by 5 lengths next time. Did richly blended. He was a really nice Benny Perkins horse. But this was the only 2-turn route that day. So, I mean, this buyer figure was basically, just a guesstimation figure. But you see Monarchos come back and win the Kentucky Derby by 4 3/4 lengths. It was the second fastest Kentucky Derby in history. Granted, the track was extremely fast that day. They went 159-4. But when Congaree came to Aqueduct for his second start in the Cigar Mile, this was an unbelievable performance, and it was a record-breaking performance, and I'll tell you how, why, and on what metric. You see, he just got the 120 buyer here, But what was fascinating about this performance, the Great Spectacular Bid had owned the fastest Ragozin sheep figure in history. Now, the Ragozin sheep figures go back to the into the late 1950s. They made numbers for Secretariat, Secretariat's Belmont, and everything else. I mean, they had Secretariat's Belmont. They had, pretty much all the great horses in the East. They've had figures from since the 50s. And they had this race at Congaree broke the record for the fastest Ragozin in history. It was held by Spectacular Bid during his 4-year-old season. He won a race at Arlington under 130 pounds. And, you see here 108 and 1 for 6, 133 flat. He drew off by 5.5. He did it with a wide trip. It was also, the fastest thoroughbred figure ever at the time. Jerry Brown started a real interesting post on his discussion board about this, about how unbelievably fast this number was. So that was Cigar breaking the thoroughbred and the Ragozin all-time record speed figure. Congaree breaking those record speed figures in the Cigar Mile in his second start. Now, the third start, Baffert brought him back for the Carter. You can see Congaree really wasn't a great wet track horse. You see his wet track race down here in the Jim Dandy. They bet him to 2-5. Disappointing third, beaten 6 lengths. You come back after the Carter running the Met, got beat 9 1/4 and 4-5 on a sloppy track. Aldebaran, who he crushed in the Carter, won the race. Peeping Tom, was third in the race. You see he's in italics. He won back again after that. In Congaree, didn't exactly handle the good track here. And he was, again, that was 4-5 that day. 3 different times at odds on, Congaree was drubbed on a wet track, but boy, at Aqueduct, 121 and 2 for 7 furlongs. The wet track wasn't a problem at Aqueduct. Crushed Aldebaran, next out Met Mile winner. Crushed Peeping Tom, next out Met Mile third and winner after that. And finally, of course, he had to come back and, win a second Cigar Mile with a second 120 buyer figure. I hate to give you a boring lecture here, but Congaree at Aqueduct was just, I don't know what it was. Maybe he liked something about the surface or something about the, who knows, but he was, just run 4 unbelievable races at Aqueduct. Just mind-bogglingly good performances there. And so Old Time Revival, he'll be out there, trying to carry his speed, going as fast as he can for as far as he can again. Probably means absolutely nothing that he's got Congaree in his pedigree. But boy, when I see Congaree right there and Aqueduct, that close to one another, it's always going to, distract me into, giving a dissertation about how great Congaree happened to be in those 4 races at Aqueduct. But from a betting standpoint, there's 2 interesting horses here. Both of them, have some upside potential. Both of them are sort of getting a class test, although I don't think this is, certainly as far as Wood Memorials of the past go, I don't think this is one of the better additions. But maybe Pletcher or Baffert, they've got 2 lightly raced horses training extremely well, and there could be a forward move. It could come at the expense of 6-5 Morning Line Enticed. And finally, we're on to the Bluegrass for the Grade 2 $1 million Bluegrass Stakes, Toyota Bluegrass at Keeneland. And this features the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, Good Magic. He's the 2-1 Morning Line favorite today. You see, he was 3-5 in his comeback race. Promises fulfilled, went out there and went wire to wire, set an easy pace. Strike Power relaxed off of him, was second the entire way. These 2 horses happened to engage in a wild breakaway speed duel in the Florida Derby, and so neither one of them ran well. the fact that both of these horses finished last and second to last in the Florida Derby should in no way be a knock on Good Magic. Absolutely can't hold that against Good Magic. He was wide, stalking about 2 lengths off the pace, and these two horses just ran away from him in a stretch. But Good Magic beat Solomini and Bolt d'Oro in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Now, Bolt d'Oro had some early troubles. He bobbled at the break. He got very bad position. Then he had to be rushed up. He was caught, extremely wide on both turns was Bolt d'Oro. But still, Good Magic just ran a hell of a race that day. In the Champagne, yeah, he lost to Firenze Fire. But, it was only his second start, and he was up close to a hot pace. You see here, plus 11, plus 9. I thought he ran very good that day. Chad Brown is going to try to have him going forward all the time. He did. He went from 92 to 96 to 105. I respect Good Magic. But one thing about this race, the Bluegrass, I see a lot of speed in here. Sporting Chance, he got caught in his debut going 5.5 furlongs. I mean, he made the lead going 5.5. Then he went wire to wire at Saratoga going 5.5. The 3 California Night, I mean, he's gone wire to wire in his only 2 wins. When he got denied the early lead, he's got no way to, he's got no possible way to go but to the lead. So you got the 2 and the 3 are going to be rolling early. Quip went wire to wire 3 back. He had some early trouble here in the Kentucky Jockey Club, steadied and everything, but he pressed the slow pace in the Tampa Derby. He's going to be another horse kind of pressing, the cheap speed in the race, or the long shot speed, I should say. You got Flame Away, who went wire to wire in the Sam Davis. Machismo with Jake Verdosevich getting the call here. I think Jake's going to be pretty aggressive. He won by 11, going 1 turn, pressing 22, 45, 109, and 3. I expect him to be part of the pace. So I think this race sets up for a closer. And I've got, a real crazy idea or two in this race. Marconi had absolutely no shot in the Fountain Youth. He was extremely disadvantaged. He didn't break well. He was wide. It might have been a touch of an inside speed track that day. I mean, I know Timeform US has the red metric indicating that they thought it was a bias that day. Maybe it was, but Marconi was against everything in the world in this race. And, he ran 5th beaten 7 3/4 and seemed to make no impression at all. But he was only beaten by about 3 lengths by Good Magic. You see here 4.5, beaten 7 3/4. So 3 1/4 lengths was all Marconi was beaten. And this race is going to run far, far, far more beneficial to his running style than did the Fountain of Youth. I mean, Good Magic's a tractable horse. He can be forward. He can relax. Marconi's just a one-dimensional, pace-dependent closer. You get a big field like this, you're going to have a fast and contested pace. Marconi's never really had much of a big field. He certainly never had a pace that was too crazy contested. They went kind of quick here at 1 1/8, but there were only 5 horses in the race, and no one was banging heads too much. So Marconi is rare to see 15 to 1 on a Pletcher horse. You got Ryan Moore, the European rider, up. He's going to run a much, much better race than people think, in my opinion. And Zing Zang, another horse. We do these reviews, and we mentioned Marconi as a horse in the Fountain of Youth who was most disadvantaged in the race afterwards. We did the same thing when we did our review of the Rebel. Zing Zang had trouble in a couple spots in the race. He kind of got our attention there. He was a horse we really didn't like much. These are both Tappet colts too. Zing Zang's a Tappet. Marconi's a Tappet. Coincidental, I don't want to talk about that too much, but both are one-dimensional closers. Both are going to get dream pace setups, and both had everything in the world go against them last time. I don't really love these horses on form. I mean, if it was just strictly on form, neither one would excite me too much. But watching their last races, I mean, extremely disadvantaged. Whereas today whereas in the Bluegrass, they're going to be extremely advantaged by the circumstance. They're going to get the setup of a lifetime, in my opinion, in this race. And, boy, maybe we can blow up the tote board here. I give the edge to Marconi. He's my preferred horse. But what if we can get these two together, make up a gigantic exacta? Or we could, use them, key them up in a trifecta with Free Drop Billy and Good Magic. So you've got the two closers, maybe Good Magic. Jose Ortiz just gets a good position. He freaks and wins the race. The race collapses in behind, and the two big long shots, see out the distance and, pass all the tired horses, finish second and third. It'd be a big try, even with the favorite winning. Or if, a real meltdown scenario happens and there's a war up front, Free Drop Billy is a horse that, he won they went too fast early in the Breeders' Futurity, a grade 1 here, the big 2-year-old race at Keeneland, and he drew off that day and with this, just a great setup. And, he's probably a little more horse than these other two. But, the other two come off of races where, they're races where they had a lot of adversity, a lot of trouble, and no shot based on circumstances. Whereas Free Drop Billy, I mean, he got a +12 and +10 contested pace in the Gotham and was disappointing. Now, he was good, too, back against Audible. But I really am, going to, take a stab here and we're going to try to get real rich betting a small amount of money. It's not going to take, you bet peanuts and you can make a big score. If you're able to hook up the 6 Marconi 15-1 morning line and the 1 Zing Zang 30-1 morning line in the Bluegrass.